What's good, YouTube? I'm the Sneaker Simeon, and today we're going to talk about why old sneakers crack, like this Air Jordan 5 that you see here, and what you can do to make them last longer. First, let's go through a few different midsoles, starting with a vulcanized sole. Vulcanized sole is what you get on a Nike Blazer. Converse Chuck Taylors and Vans Skate High are other good examples of shoes with vulcanized soles. Basically, it's an outsole with what they call a foxing tape wrapped around the shoe. If you look at the shoes from the bottom, you can actually see where that foxing tape meets the outsole. What they do first is they glue the outsole to the upper and then wrap the foxing tape around the shoe. Then they place the shoe in what's basically an oven, and the heat from the oven kind of melts that foxing tape onto the upper and the outsole. And that's basically what holds this shoe together. Vulcanized midsoles are highly flexible and they age well. They're very durable. I'm not sure over time. I'm not sure how they hold up when it comes to separation from the upper and the midsole. Because like I said before, they don't really use glue on this midsole. They melt the foxing tape onto the outsole and the upper. The only part that has glue is the outsole to the upper. But as far as the midsole goes, that's kind of just melted on there. The next midsole we're gonna talk about is the cup sole midsole, and that's what you get on the Air Jordan 1s. The Nike Dunks is also a good example of a shoe with a cup sole. The outsole and the midsole is basically one piece. It's just they use two different colored rubbers when they're molding it together. And it's glued to the upper, and in most cases, it's stitched all around the shoe. If you look here, you can see the separation. And that's what happens when the glue gets old. It gets very dried out and brittle, and it flakes and it no longer holds. That's why it's good to wear your shoes, because it helps the glue maintain its flexibility. But as far as the rubber on the cup sole, it holds out well. It ages well. You won't really have any issues besides separation. Unless you store these in properly, then the outsole, the rubber can dry out and crack. A lot of people think that the rubbers don't crack, but they do crack if you don't store them properly. They can dry out and crack. I'll give you an example of that. Look at this Air Jordan 1. Apparently, my guess is I stepped on some salt that they put out during the winter for ice and snow, and it got stuck to the bottom of my shoe. And I guess I didn't realize it. I put my shoes away. When I got back to them, I want to say a couple months later, because throughout the winter I just wear my snow boots. Unless, like this winter, it wasn't so bad. I didn't really have to break out the snow boots. But the previous winter, it was bad. I had to wear my snow boots, so I wasn't wearing my sneakers often. So I guess I put these away without knowing that they had salt on them. And over time, that salt dried these parts out, as you can see. And it got hard. And it just breaks right off. So that's very important. If you go out during the winter wearing your sneakers and you know there's salt out there, make sure you wipe your feet when you come back into the house. And before you put your shoes away, make sure that the bottom is clean of any salt, because that salt can dry out your outsole. The next midsole we're going to talk about, actually before we move on to the next midsole. Now, yes, cup soles last a very long time, but not every cup sole has the same materials on the inside. For example, the Air Jordan 1 has an air unit that's encapsulated in polyurethane. That sits between the cupsole and the upper. The the air unit sits at the heel, while the polyurethane, I believe, extends from the heel all the way to the forefoot. So it's a big piece of polyurethane. Polyurethane does crumble over time. So just know that although your shoe, it it will be wearable. It's just they'll be a little uncomfortable when you're wearing them because of that the crumbled polyurethane on the inside. And it'll be more comfortable than more uncomfortable the more they crumble. Now the Nike Dunk, this midsole, this cupsole actually only has just like a layer of foam in between the cupsole and the upper. That foam, I'm not sure what it is. I don't think it's something that would fall apart over time. I think, if and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that that foam is basically the same kind of foam they use on the insoles. But if anyone knows what that foam is that they use on the Nike Dunk on the inside the midsole, write it in the comments section. Now let's move on. Let me just get these shoes out the way, and then we can move on to the next midsole, which is a Phylon. Phylon is what you get on the Air Jordan 10s. Other good examples of shoes with Phylons would be the Air Jordan 11, the 12, the 13s, 14s, 15s, and the 16s actually has both polyurethane and Phylon. But from the 10 to the 15, it's all Phylon. Basically, it's a compressed foam. It's very soft and durable, and it doesn't fall apart over time. So you won't have any issues with this midsole. The only issue you would have is separation from the upper because of the old glue. But that's like a very easy fix. You can always just re-glue the shoe. Unless, of course, these shoes have an air unit on the inside. The air units do get hard and they fall apart, they crack. And if you're going to replace that air unit, that's going to be a harder fix. You will notice when the air unit breaks because your foot kind of sinks into the midsole. So you'll feel it. And if you are going to restore a shoe with a Phylon midsole, I suggest you be very careful when using your heat gun, because the heat, too much heat, can actually expand the Phylon, causing it to it just won't fit properly in between the upper and the outsole. The outsole is made of rubber. Again, just like the cupsole, it can dry out if not stored properly, and it can crack when you flex the shoe, it'll crack. And that's the Phylon midsole. The next and last midsole we're going to talk about, it's polyurethane. This is the midsole that a lot of retros have. And this is the midsole that cracks, that really falls apart, as you can see. Polyurethane, basically, a lot of people think that the polyurethane cracks because it dries out. And although that's true, it can crack from drying out. The real and more common reason for it crumbling is actually moisture. You see, I don't know, you can't really see it with the naked eye, but polyurethane has pores, a bunch of tiny little holes and spaces throughout the midsole. And moisture gets in there, and the polyurethane has a reaction to that moisture called hydrolysis, and that kind of decomposes the polyurethane, and that's what causes it to crumble. That's why when it does crumble, it kind of looks like cake. It's like moist. It's not really dried. It's in most cases it's kind of sticky. It's kind of, you see it's stuck to my finger. But yeah, it's moisture that makes the polyurethane crumble. Now, I'm not saying when like if you're out in the rain or if you're cleaning your shoe, you step in a puddle, that's not exactly what's gonna ruin it. It's more like steam, humidity, vapor, like small particles of water is basically what gets in there and kind of decomposes the polyurethane. That's why wearing them will make them last longer, because when you wear your shoes, it kind of compresses the polyurethane and it kind of closes up all those little spaces and pores, and it kind of prevents all the moisture from getting in there, and it also kind of pushes out any moisture. So that's why it's good to wear your shoes. Now, polyurethane is a compression resistant material, so of course when you take your shoes off, the midsole is going to decompress. So that's why it's best to continue wearing your shoes as often as you can, because the more time it's compressed, the less moisture would get in there. Also, the way you store your shoes is also very important. I've noticed that a lot of people have those bins, and I have them too. It's the bins for shoes that have the little doors in the front that flap down. But I've noticed that a lot of people stack those bins all the way up to the ceiling. Now, you may or may not know, heat rises, and the shoes on top is getting that heat the worst. That heat is what damages the midsoles. So that's why I suggest, if you're gonna store your shoes in those bins or even keep them in their shoe boxes, try not to store them halfway up your wall. Try to keep it below halfway. The lower the better, because the lower your shoes are, the cooler they'll be. You want to keep them in a cool, dry place. Hot and humidity and moisture is what messes up your midsole. So try not to store your shoes too high up in your rooms or closet, because heat rises and that heat will destroy your shoes. So the lifespan for a shoe with polyurethane, if you're not wearing them regularly and you're not storing them properly, the lifespan will be like 5 to 10 years. And if you are wearing them regularly and you are storing them properly, the lifespan would be like 10 to 15 years. For example, these tools that I have here are from 2008. These, you see, trying to do the math in my head. 2008, we're in 2023, so it's about 15 years. I believe it was the summer of 2008 that I got them. So yeah, 15 years this summer. And they're still holding up. And that's because I wear them a lot. I wear these shoes a lot. The only thing is the glue. I did have to re-glue them a few times, but they're holding up, and that's because I've been wearing them. And it's been 15 years. I give them maybe another year before they actually start to crack. But to be honest, I haven't seen any sign of cracking at all. No signs of cracking at all. Usually you'll start to notice the cracking more like this. Just little parts. That's when you first start to notice cracking. But for the most part, these are still holding up. Now these are from 2006. These are 2 years older than these. But these actually started crumbling 9 years after the release date. And that's because I wasn't wearing them properly. I wasn't storing them properly, and I wasn't wearing them as often. I used to keep my sneakers in this big shelf I had in my room that went up to the ceiling. These were always at the top. Since I didn't wear them often, I kept them at the top. And this is what happened to them. I learned the hard way. So take it from me. Don't store your shoes high up on a shelf. That heat up there will destroy them. And wear your shoes. If you really want your shoes to last, wear your shoes. I also think that having too many pairs can also contribute into, the shoes having a short lifespan. And that's just my opinion. But the reason I believe that is because the more shoes you have, the less you'll actually be wearing them. Like, for example, if you had 365 pairs of sneakers, that means you're only wearing one pair of shoe a day. And like these, if they fall apart in 9 years, that means you've only wore them 9 times. And that is like, what's the point? What's the point of even having them? It's like, it's a waste. That's what I'm saying. Wear your shoes. Try not to have more than you need, because then you're just not going to be able to wear your shoes and they're just going to fall apart. I know I've seen people online who have even more than, say 365 pairs. And it's crazy, because what's the point? Just to show them off? Just to say you have them? And I know a lot of people, they say that it's an investment, but I think that ideology is what, in my opinion, has killed the sneaker culture. That ideology has really killed the sneaker culture. And that's why it's so hard for real sneaker enthusiasts. I like to say sneaker enthusiasts because that term sneakerhead gets thrown around too much, too loosely. So I say sneaker enthusiast. And those real sneaker enthusiasts can't get the shoes they actually want, the shoes they wanted when they were young and couldn't get, because of all these people who are just hoarding sneakers. And it's crazy. But I'm going to continue with what else crumbles. Show you this Air Jordan 4. So on the Air Jordan 4s, you'll see these rubber pieces here. It's like a rubbery plastic. These can't stiffen up and harden, and they can break. The same material is on the Air Jordan 3s and on the heel of the Air Jordan 2s. So this can stiffen up and crack if not stored properly. I occasionally do this to them. I'm not sure if this actually helps, but I like to assume that flexing them does help. So I do this sometimes after wearing them or when I'm putting them away in the shoebox. I massage it a little bit in hopes that, it'll last longer. Another part of the shoe that cracks is this right here. On the Air Jordan 5, they can't stiffen up and crumble. I actually have a friend who bought a pair back in 2005. He bought a pair of the 1999 black and metallic 5s. And I guess the person he bought them from wasn't storing them properly. They were dead stock. The shoe was only 6 years old. He put them on, and this crumbled. And then, I don't know if it was that same year or maybe a year or two later, I went with him to Flight Club, the original Flight Club location. It was on Green Street. And he bought another pair of 1999 metallic 5s. Only that pair was used. That pair was worn. And he had no issue with that pair at all. And that's because that pair was worn. And the first pair wasn't worn. So that's another good example right there that you should wear your shoes. You want your shoes to last longer? Wear your shoes. Anyway, that's all I know on what causes sneakers to fall apart. Remember, wear your shoes. When you wear your shoes, you save a soul. I'm going to end the video here. If I left anything out or I got something wrong, let me know in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Peace.